Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Hey, it's John Nemo. Welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. So excited to dive into this topic because it's such a little nuanced piece of sales calls and successful sales calls that if you don't get this right, you're almost never going to close. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I've been struggling. How's that? I've been slumping. I'm doing terrible. I'm a complete failure. What's so funny is no matter how long you do sales, you have these slumps. It's similar to sports where, I grew up loving baseball and, you see your favorite hitter, they're in a slump, right? They haven't had a hit in 2 weeks. They're 0 for 32. And then all of a sudden they catch fire and they're 5 for 5, and they break out of it. And so much of it with sales has to do with confidence. And you can't ever think you know it all. I've been doing sales since 2012. When I quit my day job, literally quit a safe 6-figure day job to go on my own and build my own marketing agency. And I knew I didn't have a problem with lead generation. Even though I only had one client and enough money for 30 days, I knew there was something going on, even back in 2012 with LinkedIn, where I could leverage LinkedIn to generate leads without having to leave the house. And so that has proven true. Over the past 12 years, that has not been an issue. I've been able to leverage LinkedIn to kind of get a flood of qualified leads for myself and now for my clients. And so, of course, that's led to the LinkedIn Riches books and the courses and the trainings. Now, what I really focus on is done for you LinkedIn lead generation, where I personally do it for you with my team. So I personally do your strategy. I rewrite your profile. I write the content, I write the messaging, and then I have a team that helps me implement it all on LinkedIn for you and do the outreach and follow up with the conversations and then direct the leads to you. So anyway, that's what I've been focused on selling, right, the last couple of years on my own and doing well. But then again, I was in a slump here lately, and I knew I needed a tune-up. And it really came down to kind of this nuanced piece of sales that I want to get into. But first, remember how important confidence is in sales. I love this. There's a great book from a guy named Les Giblin. He wrote a book years ago. It's kind of a hidden gem called How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. And he talks about this. He says, you never sell anything to anyone else unless you yourself are sold on it. If you're sold on it and you're confident and the other person knows you're sold on this, the other person will want in, right? Sell yourself in the idea that the other person is going to buy, that basically they're an idiot if they don't, and they're almost forced into buying what you're selling. He says confidence for a salesperson is like money in the bank. And as you know, with sports and with sales, the minute you get into a slump and you go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in baseball, you're starting to question your confidence. And then you're trying too hard. Like in ice hockey, they call it, they're squeezing the stick into sawdust, right? They're trying too hard. They're overcompensating. They're second guessing themselves. And that's what I was getting into. And confidence is contagious on these sales calls. And I love this quote from Les Giblin. He says, it's a sad but true fact that many men of mediocre ability get further than others who have outstanding talents merely because they know how to act confidently. And he says that a confident manner in a salesman is like having money in the bank, right? Well, okay, great, Les, but what if my confidence is shaken? How do I get that back? And so, of course, some of it is mindset. And I've talked a ton about mindset, and I'll put links in the show notes to mindset training to rebuild confidence. But part of it, too, is technical. And part of what I want to talk about is the technical tune-up that really helped me go 3 for 3 on my sales calls. So after going like 0 for 5, 0 for 6, I had 3 sales calls in one day and I closed all 3 with this new kind of technical tune-up. And it all has to do with how you frame the call. So all credit goes to my business coach, John Michael Morgan, who he's been my right-hand guy since 2012. He's kind of my trusted advisor, my confidant. And I went to him and he knows me and he knows my business. And that's why I recommend everybody has a coach, whoever you use. But I basically was like, hey, I'm slumping. I know something's going on with my sales because usually I'm closing these, I'm not. And we basically diagnosed two things. One was a mindset issue where I was kind of self-sabotaging for a bunch of different reasons, just with workload and things like that. But the other one was more technical. He's like, well, tell me about the calls. And I'm telling him, he's like, yeah, you lost control of the frame. And when he talks about framing a call, meaning the frame of the call is who's in control? What's the agenda? How are we setting this up? Right. And Les Giblin talks about this as well. Right. He says, whether you realize it or not, you control the actions and attitudes of others by your own actions and attitudes. Your own attitude is reflected back to you from the other person as if you stood before a mirror. And Les Giblin goes on to say, everybody in the world is literally waiting for you to tell them what to do. And he says that, think about this on sales calls. Giblin says, you can control the actions and attitudes of the other person to a remarkable extent if you remember to start the conversation on the same kind of note, emotionally and otherwise, that you want it to end on. If you want the person to take you seriously, sound serious in your first words. If you want it to be business-like, start with a business-like tone. If you want it to be informal, start it off informal. And it's all about the frame and the control. And so for me, what was happening on these sales calls was I was letting the prospect set the frame. I was letting them control the call. I was basically kind of being passive because of my mindset, right? And taking a backseat and be like, well, how can I help you? And basically instead, the frame that needed to change was I needed to kind of take authority back and control the call and have the right frame and the right leverage in place so that I could be more successful closing the deal. So the frame that I needed to change to was this, because now my current business model with Done For You LinkedIn lead generation, currently the way I have it set up today is I do the work for you personally. So you get me, you get the guru, you get the expert, you get the guy that has been doing this since 2012, who's done hundreds, if not thousands of profile rewrites. I've worked with, hundreds and hundreds of clients who have done six figures in sales based on the LinkedIn lead generation I provided them and the content and the copy I've written personally. And, I'm the guy that was featured in the New York Times and guest blogged for Inc. magazine. And I spoke at all these big conferences. So it's kind of like saying, the frame I want to have is like, hey, if you were asking someone to ghostwrite your book, would you want Stephen King to do it or someone from Fiverr, right? If you want someone to do your LinkedIn profile, do you want to get somebody from Fiverr or John Nemo, right? Now, again, you have to have the right brand and right kind of content to get people into that part of your funnel. Because if I get an ice cold lead who's never heard of me, that doesn't work. That leverage and that value doesn't work because they're like, well, who are you? You're just some schmo that says he can help me on LinkedIn. But if you come in through my content, through my books, LinkedIn Riches, through my podcast, through my videos, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn articles, and you've followed me for weeks or months or years, then you're indoctrinated. You're like, yes, I know this guy. I like this guy. I trust this guy. I enjoy him. I get along with him because I put so much personality into my content. And more importantly, I try to demonstrate expertise and demonstrate techniques and ideas that help you go, yeah, that works. I got results with that. Okay, cool. I bet there's even more if I work with John directly. So if you can set that frame of, yes, you're the real deal, you're the guru, you're really good at this, and that immediately then leverages scarcity. Because what I can say, so what I did on these calls was I went from saying, well, tell me how I can help you out to, hey, great to talk to you. Really glad we connected. Thank you for reading my book, watching my video, filling out a type form, and all these other qualifiers I had them go through. And I say, yeah, just so you know, this is a little different than maybe a typical quote unquote sales call. I really want to interview you as much as you interview me. Since I work with each client personally on the Done For You side, since I'm going to be personally doing your strategy, your profile, your content, I know I win or lose based on client selection. So I've got to make sure that I pick winning clients. So I'm really going to interview you on this call as much as you interview me. And obviously we both have to decide it's a mutually good fit. All right. With that said, tell me more about what you have going on and what you think makes you unique and different and better. And I start getting into then them having to sell themselves to me. That's the frame I want on the call is, listen, I have a legitimate scarcity issue where I can only work with so many clients at one time. So if you are bought into my methods and my brand and my success, and oh, wow, I would get to work with you personally, that's a much different frame than, how can I help you? And, you dictate the terms and you dictate how much you want to, do or not do and help me and not help me. And So I found that when I flipped that frame back and kind of took that control back of like, hey, listen, this is a two-way street. Like, why would you be a great client for me? Why would I love to work with you? What do you really think makes you unique, different, and better? And if I do generate these leads on LinkedIn, are you going to be able to close them? Because I know and you know that I can get you all the leads in the world, but if you can't close them, if you're not confident in your ability on the sales side, that's an issue, right? None of us are going to be happy. You're going to be mad at me. I'm going to be mad at you. Like nobody's going to win, because at the end of the day, there's no point hiring me to generate leads if you can't turn them into paying clients. And that's where then I can say to people who are like, yeah, I'm not good at sales. Okay, well, I can help you and I can train you, and I have sales training programs, and I will work with clients that way who aren't natural salespeople and do exactly what I'm doing on this podcast, like walking them through my frameworks and things like that. But then there'll be other clients who are like, listen, I'm a great closer. I have immense confidence in my abilities. I just need qualified leads. Then I can say, okay, cool. Well, that's not going to be an issue. If you look at all my content, all my testimonials and this niche, like, listen, like this should be fine, right? And then that's where too, I'll feel out their personalities and say, well, before I get into pricing and what it looks like to work with me, why would I want to work with you? Like, what would make you a great client for me? What would I enjoy? And that always kind of puts people back. They're like, wait, what? Like, you're not just going to hop to my beat. You're not going to just skip to my song. And I'm like, no, like, I don't have to work with you, right? And that's where you want to have that abundance mindset. You want to remind yourself, for instance, if you're using LinkedIn for lead generation, there's 1 billion with a B. There's 1 billion people on LinkedIn. You're not going to run out of leads. You're not going to run out of people that need your service. You just got to find the right people. You don't need to work with everyone. And so having that abundance mindset puts you in that frame of control for a sales call where you say, well, listen, and I know that, we all win or lose based on client selection. I want to pick winning horses. I'm like an attorney. I don't want to pick a case that I don't think I can win. I want to pick winners. So tell me what, and you can find your own tone and style and delivery for this. You don't have to be an arrogant jerk or an egomaniac. You just have to find the right tone and basically say, why would you be a great client for me? Why would I love to work with you? Because then it flips the frame back to you're in control, and they have to justify themselves and say, well, you'd love to work with me because I trust my vendors and I'm going to do what you tell me, and you're the subject matter expert and I'm not here to micromanage and I just want the end result. So whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. And that's the answer, of course, I'm looking for, as opposed to, no, I'm a micromanaging control freak and I don't trust you and I won't let you do what you need, or I'll bring in a committee of 16 people to debate everything and we won't get anything done, right? So that's where, again, I took that frame back. I had this call with my coach on a Thursday. We walked through this frame again. I had 3 sales calls on Friday and I closed all 3. It was like magic. I was like, oh my God, I forgot. It was like hitting the ball again, after striking out so many times. And that's where you need that outside help. That's where sometimes you need a coach or a confidant or someone to be like, hey, remind you, I had to be reminded of who I was, and I had to stand on my own brand, right? It's easy to doubt yourself or put yourself down or say you're not a big deal. And I don't like doing that. I don't like bragging, and I don't do that. I try not to be an egomaniac, but I also want to convey to the other person, hey, you're hiring me, you're getting the best. Like, you want to have that confidence in your service. Like Les Giblin said earlier, like I quoted, like they want to find somebody who's beyond confident in their ability because that's what attracts them, right? You're going to control them, based on your behavior. Like, and Les Giblin talks about this. He says, look at a door-to-door salesman. If they knock on the door and when the person answers, they say, well, I hate to bother you. I'm sorry to intrude. I won't take up much of your time. You're now setting a frame where you're bothersome. You're annoying them. You're a pest, right? You're setting a stage where the prospect can only act out the role of being annoyed with you and their time's being wasted, right? And this is what Giblin says. He says, people are acting out the roles that have been assigned to them. They're acting in accordance with the stage that you've set and the scene that you've set. So whether you realize it or not, every time you deal with someone on a sales call, you're setting a stage, he says. If you set the stage for comedy, don't expect them to be serious. If you set the stage for tragedy, don't expect them to be happy about it. Right. I love that reminder. And that's another way to say it is the frame of the call. So if I set the frame of the call and the expectation right off the hop and say, hey, great to see you. Nice to have you on the call. Just to kind of set up the expectations. The way that I work is I actually want to interview you as much as you interview me. I really win or lose based on client selection. And because I'm doing everything personally, if I do decide to take you on as a done for you client, I really want to make sure I know I can help you and I know I can get you good results. And most importantly, that I would have fun working with you and that you'd be a great client, that you would trust me. So don't, I don't want to catch you off guard that I'm going to be grilling you a little bit too. And mostly usually you're probably used to just grilling the vendor, but that's just, that's the approach I'm taking. And that's the frame I want, because again, then you have that abundance mindset, you're in control, and the other person's like, oh, this isn't a case where if I just am willing to meet your price, I get you no matter what. And that's why that leverage is everything. So I hope that helps you. I can't recommend that book from Les Giblin enough, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. I really like going back to these older books, from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whenever he wrote it, because it's so easy today to forget that we're dealing with people. The science and the art of influencing people and dealing with people has never changed in thousands of years, and it never will. So you don't need the latest, newest book. You just need to know how to handle people. And there's a great quote that I have framed on my desk from Dale Carnegie, and he says, your ability to handle people will make you rich. It's very true on sales calls. It's very true in customer service. It's very true with employee retention, client retention. We are emotional creatures. Dale Carnegie talks about that. He says, you're not dealing with rational creatures. You're dealing with human beings, people, bristling with vanity and pride and arrogance or whatever other emotional random things. And so that's why framing these calls, setting a stage, kind of making it clear, like, hey, listen, I'm running the show here. Here's how we're going to process this call, and here's the outcome we're going to get to, is really how you get those good results. So hope you found that helpful. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon on another episode.